Hi friends, welcome to part 3 of my best-selling items series. Today's video will reveal both my second and third top seller. I will share photos of finished projects, a tutorial, and final reveal for each of them. Quick recap, number 5 was glass bottles and number 4 was repurposed decor. Let's put some metal trays and platters in the number 3 position. This piece I created texture using different brush strokes and eyeshadow around a rub-on transfer. If you watched last week's video, you know that you can skip ahead or rewatch any portion of my video by clicking the chapter that you choose found in the description box below. Here are designs that I found online, printed them on tissue paper, and decoupaged it onto the platter. Here I apply rub-on transfers and then a coat of spray sealer. This one was painted first, then rub-on transfer and a coat of sealer. I created texture applying different brush strokes, again using eyeshadow, a rub-on transfer, and some gilding wax. If rub-on transfers are not in your budget, or if you don't have them on hand, you could create a freezer paper transfer like I did in this picture, or print out on rice paper, which is an easy paper to print on and apply to most surfaces. I have several videos as well as posts over on my blog that can walk you through different methods of creating DIY transfers. Starting with a basic stainless steel plate that I purchased from a thrift store for $1.99. You're going to want to apply 2 coats of primer. Due to it being a slick, shiny surface, you can either use 2 coats of Slick Stick, which is now Bonding Boss from Dixie Belle. I've used gesso in the past, which is linked in the description box below. For this project, though, I used spray paint with a primer all in one. I applied 2 even coats, let it dry overnight. Quick and easy. Ink stamps. I believe that all these for this project were from Iron Orchid Designs. My tip is, when applying ink stamps, always have a baby wipe or damp cloth on hand to wipe off any unwanted marks immediately. I did not measure the placement of these. I kind of eyeballed it, and I did make a mistake, and I'll show you how I fixed that in a minute. I do have all the ink stamps on here backwards, so that way I can kind of get an idea of placement. Sorry, I guess I don't show where I add the additional ink stamp, but you'll see in the final reveal that I do fix that spot. I decided it needed a little something else, so I took the ink pad and lightly went around the edges. Another option, you could also apply gilding wax or even take a dry brush with your paint color of your choice. I applied 2 coats of spray sealer by Rust-Oleum. You could use any type of water-based sealer that you wish. If it wasn't for the drying time, this project would have only taken a few minutes. There are countless ways to transform a picture frame. Today I'll just show you a few. These first 2, I applied Dixie Belle rub-on transfers onto almost like a heavy cardstock. This one, I painted heavy cardboard, applied an ink stamp over the entire piece, did a little gilding wax for an accent, and that lavender in the center was the napkin that I tore and applied. Painted the frames. I believe I added white wax to them, covered the cardboard with burlap, and then glued the seashells onto that. These vintage style bird prints I found on canva.com and printed them out on brown paper. Gave this vintage photo frame a new coat of paint and lightly distressed along the edges. Glued some lace in the center of this big picture frame and went along the edges with an ink stamp. that sold almost immediately. Here I created a vanity style tray by applying ink stamp to fabric, putting the glass up over the top, and gluing cute little feet to the bottom. You can find amazing designs over 2x4 block printables on Etsy. You're going to find that linked in the description box below, and that's where this beautiful print came from. If you're looking for vintage style prints, go right over to thegraphicsfairy.com. Put them on any type of paper and add some antique wax to a painted frame. As far as frames go, upcycling them with a doily in the center is a super quick seller. Here's another vintage style print from thegraphicsfairy.com. Both unpainted and painted plain frames with nothing in the center have also been big sellers. This print came from canva.com and I printed on waterslide decal paper. Adding beadboard to the center of this frame and painting it, and then adding a wreath. Great thing about picture frames is they come in all different shapes and sizes. This wooden one had seen better days, came without the glass or the backing, but we can definitely turn that into something beautiful. The next two frames are basic ones. I'll be removing the glass, using that for another project, and removing the backings off of them. Most of the frames that I acquired do not have the glass in them, so this is a great way to repurpose them. For today's paint, I'm using Apple Barrel that I purchased from Walmart. It works for a simple, basic project. This one I did not apply any type of primer, but I did use some fine grit sandpaper and just rough it up a little bit. I applied 2 coats to make sure it has full coverage. Now this one does have a shiny surface on it, so I applied 2 coats of the Slick Stick from Dixie Belle because I don't want the paint to peel. And that was the last of my Slick Stick. I'm now using the Bonding Boss from Dixie Belle, which is their new 2-in-1 product. I grabbed a couple of my stained and torn doilies. Those are going to go in the smaller picture frames. And then for the larger one, I believe that this was part of a tablecloth. I was able to salvage a piece without any holes for this project and probably a few more. I'm going to line up that design right in the middle of the frame and then just do a rough cut, leaving about 1 inch larger than the frame. Adding a little distress around the outside of the frame using some fine grit sandpaper. I used hot glue to adhere the lace to the frame, working on the 2 shorter sides first and then on to the longer sides. This allowed me to better control the fabric and keep the design even. Because I wasn't putting the glass back into this frame, I was able to cut right along that line where the mirror once was. I tucked any loose threads right down in there as well. I did the same for the other 2 frames, kind of just trying to find a way to be able to display the design without displaying the stain. Side of the back of the frames needed to be painted. Then I hot glued ribbon along the edge to give them a more finished look. All right, so next Sunday will be my #1 bestseller. I'll give you a hint, it can be both an upcycled item and a repurposed item. If you've missed either of the first 2 videos in this series, you can click on either one and it'll take you right there. Hey friends, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a super blessed week and I will see you next Sunday.